There is a version of you that you quietly despise. Not because he failed completely, but because he almost knows better. He understands what needs to be done. He knows what must change. And yet, every day, he chooses comfort over courage. That inner tension you feel isn't weakness. It isn't self-hatred. It's your conscience screaming that the life you're living no longer matches the man you're capable of becoming. Stoic philosophy never promised growth without loss. In fact, it warned us of something far harsher. No transformation happens without destruction. The old identity doesn't fade away politely. It must be faced, broken, and left behind. Today isn't about motivation. It isn't about fixing habits or chasing inspiration. This is about ending a version of yourself that has overstayed his purpose and rebuilding, alone, in silence, with discipline, into someone you can finally respect. Stay with me, because what comes next isn't comfortable, but it is necessary. 1. The quiet hatred you feel toward yourself. There's a kind of pain no one talks about. It isn't loud, it doesn't look like failure. It shows up as disappointment turned inward. You wake up, go through the motions, handle responsibilities, even appear functional to others. Yet somewhere inside, there's a quiet voice saying, "You know you're capable of more than this." That voice isn't cruel, it's honest. Most men mistake this feeling for low self-esteem or weakness, but Stoic philosophy sees it differently. This isn't self-hate. This is self-awareness colliding with inaction. You don't hate yourself. You hate the distance between who you are and who you know you could be. Every broken promise you made to yourself adds weight. Every time you said tomorrow instead of now, that weight grew heavier. Not enough to crush you, but enough to drain you. That exhaustion is dangerous, because when a man lives too long in quiet disappointment, he starts numbing himself. He distracts. He rationalizes. He tells himself stories like, "This is just how life is," or "I'll change when things calm down." But deep down, he knows the truth. The discomfort you feel isn't random. It's a signal, a warning flare from your own character. The Stoics believed inner conflict appears when we act against our values. When your actions no longer align with what you respect, your mind turns against you, not to punish you, but to correct you. That inner tension isn't the enemy. Ignoring it is. This is where most people go wrong. They try to silence that voice with positivity, comfort, or motivation. They look for reassurance instead of responsibility. But Stoicism doesn't offer comfort. It offers clarity. And the clarity is this: the version of you you're disappointed in has reached the end of his usefulness. He helped you survive. He protected you from risk. He kept you safe when you weren't ready. But survival is no longer enough. The quiet resentment you feel toward yourself isn't asking to be soothed. It's asking to be answered with action. Until that happens, you'll keep feeling restless even on calm days, irritated for no clear reason, tired without being physically exhausted, because your mind knows something your habits refuse to accept. The old version of you is out of alignment with the life you're meant to build. And here's the hard truth most men avoid. You cannot heal this feeling by improving the old you. You cannot negotiate with it. You cannot comfort it away. This tension only resolves when the old identity is confronted and replaced. Not slowly, not gently, but deliberately. That quiet hatred isn't telling you to feel better about yourself. It's telling you to stop betraying yourself. And once you understand that, the discomfort stops being confusing. It becomes directional. It points forward. 2. Why the old you is comfortable and dangerous. The old version of you isn't a villain. That's why he's so hard to kill. He's familiar, predictable. He knows how to survive without risking too much. He wakes up on time, handles obligations, avoids disasters, keeps things under control. And that's exactly the problem. Stoicism teaches that what feels safe is often what keeps us small. The old you didn't fail. He adapted. He learned how to cope, not how to grow. Comfort didn't arrive as pleasure. It arrived as routine, as explanations, as habits that slowly lowered your standards while convincing you everything was fine. You didn't choose weakness. You drifted into it. The dangerous part about the old you isn't that he's broken. It's that he works just well enough to keep you from changing. He tells you, now isn't the right time, or you've already come far. Don't be so hard on yourself. And each time you listen, the edge dulls. The Stoics warned about this illusion. Comfort doesn't shout, it whispers. It whispers until discipline feels extreme, until effort feels unnecessary, until ambition starts to feel like arrogance. And slowly, without realizing it, you begin defending the very version of yourself that's holding you back. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The old you is dangerous because he knows your excuses. He speaks in your voice. He uses your past to justify your future. He reminds you of how much you've endured, then convinces you that you deserve rest instead of transformation. But Stoicism doesn't ask what you deserve. It asks what this moment requires of you. And most moments don't require comfort. They require courage. The old you avoids pain not because he's weak, but because pain threatens his identity. Growth would expose his limits. Discipline would dismantle his stories. Change would make him irrelevant. That's why he resists. And that's why you feel stuck even when nothing is technically wrong. Comfort has kept you alive, but it has also kept you unfinished. The Stoics believed every man eventually faces a choice: protect the identity that feels safe, or sacrifice it to become stronger. You cannot evolve while protecting the old you. You cannot become sharper while padding every edge. At some point, comfort stops being kindness and starts becoming betrayal. And until you see the old you for what he truly is, not an enemy, but an expired version, you'll keep mistaking stagnation for peace. This is where destruction begins, not with rage, not with drama, but with a clear, unflinching decision. Comfort will no longer decide who I become. 3. Destroying yourself feels like losing everything. When you finally stop protecting the old you, something unsettling happens. The structure you've been leaning on begins to crack. You feel exposed, unanchored, as if the ground beneath your identity has quietly given way. This is the part no one prepares you for. Destruction doesn't feel powerful at first. It feels like confusion, like doubt, like standing in the middle of your life without a map. The habits that once shaped your days no longer satisfy you. The excuses that once worked now sound empty. Even the things that used to comfort you start to irritate you. You don't feel stronger. You feel hollow. And that emptiness is terrifying. Most people mistake this moment for failure. They assume something has gone wrong, so they rush to rebuild the old structure, anything to escape the discomfort of not knowing who they are. But Stoic philosophy names this moment clearly: identity collapse. The Stoics understood that before a man becomes something new, he must endure a phase where he is nothing familiar. You're not falling apart. You're falling in between. That's why it feels like loss. You're losing certainty, losing labels, losing the false confidence that came from knowing exactly who you were, even if you secretly despise that version. There is grief in this process. You grieve old routines, old roles, the version of you that fit neatly into other people's expectations. But grief isn't weakness. It's proof that something meaningful is ending. The Stoics didn't romanticize this stage. They respected it, because only a man willing to sit in discomfort without retreat can rebuild with intention. This is where discipline begins to matter more than motivation. Motivation disappears when identity dissolves. Discipline remains because it doesn't depend on clarity, only commitment. In this phase, you act without certainty. You move without applause. You choose restraint without reassurance. And that feels like losing everything. But look closer. What you're actually losing are the supports that kept the old you intact. Distractions, rationalizations, emotional shortcuts. What remains is something raw, uncomfortable, honest. A man stripped of identity has two choices: return to what he knows, or endure the void long enough to shape something new. Most people run back. The Stoics stayed. They understood chaos is not the opposite of order. It's the material from which order is built. If you're in this stage, don't rush, don't panic, don't try to feel confident. Confidence belongs to the old you. Right now, your task is simpler and harder. Do not rebuild what needs to die. Sit in the uncertainty. Let the discomfort burn away what no longer fits, because what feels like losing everything is often the moment you finally stop lying to yourself. And from that honesty, a new structure will eventually rise. 4. Why you must rebuild alone. There comes a moment when you realize something painful and liberating at the same time. No one can walk this part with you. Not because they don't care, not because they failed you, but because this transformation cannot be witnessed while it's happening. When you begin rebuilding, people still see the old you. They speak to habits you're trying to kill. They expect reactions you're no longer willing to give, and without meaning to, they pull you backward. Stoic philosophy never promised companionship during transformation. It warned that growth would separate you quietly. Rebuilding demands a level of honesty that doesn't survive crowds. In solitude, there's no audience to impress, no validation to chase, no mask to maintain, only behavior, only discipline, only truth. That's why isolation feels heavier than loneliness. Loneliness wants connection. Isolation demands responsibility. When you're alone, every excuse collapses. There's no one to blame, no one to distract you from your own inconsistencies. That's uncomfortable. That's why most people avoid it. They confuse company with progress, noise with momentum, support with growth. But the Stoics understood something most men learn too late. Identity is rebuilt in silence. In solitude, your actions speak louder than your intentions. You start seeing what you actually do, not what you promise yourself you'll do someday. And that clarity hurts. You notice how often you reach for comfort, how easily you abandon discipline when no one is watching, how much of your former identity depended on external approval. This isn't punishment, it's purification. Isolation removes the echo. What remains is your real character. That's why this stage feels so exposing. You're not just alone, you're unprotected. No one is clapping. No one is reassuring you that you're on the right path. You move forward without witnesses, and that's the point. Because the version of you that emerges from solitude doesn't need to be announced, explained, or approved. He's built quietly through repetition, restraint, and self-command. The Stoics didn't seek isolation to escape the world. They used it to re-enter the world changed. So if you feel misunderstood right now, if conversations feel shallow, if you've grown quieter without knowing why, this isn't regression, it's reconstruction. You are not being abandoned, you are being refined, and the man you're becoming cannot be assembled in public. He must be built where there are no mirrors, no applause, and no shortcuts. Alone. 5. Discipline is what holds you together when motivation dies. At some point, the emotional fire fades. The clarity you once felt begins to soften. The urgency dulls. This is where most transformations quietly fail. Motivation was never meant to carry you through destruction and rebirth. It's unstable. It depends on mood, energy, and circumstance. Stoic philosophy never trusted motivation. It trusted discipline. Discipline is what remains when inspiration disappears, when progress feels invisible, when no part of you wants to continue. In this phase, nothing feels dramatic. You don't feel heroic. You feel repetitive. You wake up. You do the work. You restrain impulses. You keep promises no one knows about. This is where the new identity starts to solidify. Not in big moments, but in small, unremarkable decisions repeated daily. Discipline doesn't ask how you feel. It asks what you committed to. And when you act without emotion, something shifts. Your nervous system learns reliability. Your mind begins to trust you again. That trust is fragile at first. You've broken too many promises to yourself in the past, so your psyche waits, skeptical, watching for consistency. Discipline rebuilds that trust slowly. Each completed task sends a signal, I can rely on myself. That's why discipline feels heavy. It carries the weight of your future identity. The Stoics didn't see discipline as punishment. They saw it as alignment. Acting in accordance with reason, regardless of comfort, was the highest form of self-respect. And self-respect changes everything. When you respect yourself, you stop negotiating with weakness. You stop romanticizing comfort. You stop asking whether something is worth it. You simply do what the moment requires. Discipline also clarifies desire. You begin to want less, speak less, explain less. Noise loses its grip. Approval loses its appeal. Because discipline gives you something motivation never could: inner structure. Structure creates stability. Stability creates confidence, not the loud kind, the grounded kind. This is why disciplined men move differently. They don't rush. They don't overreact. They don't seek constant affirmation. They are held together from the inside. And when motivation disappears, as it always does, discipline remains. It carries you forward when emotions cannot. This is the backbone of the new you. Not passion, not inspiration, consistency under pressure. And once that structure is in place, the transformation becomes irreversible. 6. Let people lose the old you. One of the hardest parts of rebuilding yourself is accepting that some people will not come with you. Not because you became arrogant, not because you betrayed them, but because you stopped playing the role they were comfortable with. When you change, familiar dynamics are disrupted. You speak less, you react slower, you stop explaining yourself the way you used to, and that unsettles people. They may say you've changed, as if change were a flaw. They may joke about the old you or subtly try to pull you back into patterns you've outgrown. Stoic philosophy is clear about this. Not everyone is meant to grow at the same pace or in the same direction. People don't miss you. They miss how predictable you were, how accessible, how easy it was to influence you. When you begin to respect yourself, you naturally stop overgiving, over-explaining, and over-accommodating. That feels like loss to them. And this is where many men panic. They soften boundaries. They revive old habits. They shrink themselves to preserve connection. But Stoicism asks a harder question. Is this connection built on truth or on familiarity? You are not obligated to remain who you were just because someone else is attached to that version. Letting people lose the old you doesn't mean cutting everyone off. It means refusing to maintain an identity that no longer fits. Some relationships will adjust. Others will fade quietly. A few may end abruptly. That doesn't make you cold. It makes you honest. The Stoics believed character mattered more than approval. That living in alignment with your values was worth the discomfort of being misunderstood. And here's the truth most people won't tell you. If someone can only love you as you were, they are not prepared to respect who you are becoming. This stage hurts, not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're no longer available for roles that required self-betrayal. Let the distance happen. Let the silence stretch. What remains after this phase will be cleaner, stronger, and more real. Because the man you are becoming does not chase acceptance. He chooses integrity, and integrity always costs something, usually the version of you that kept everyone comfortable at your own expense. 7. Becoming someone you can respect. At the end of this process, something quiet happens. No announcement, no celebration, no sudden rush of happiness. Just a moment where you realize something has changed. You begin to trust yourself again. Not because life became easier, not because problems disappeared, but because, for the first time in a long time, you stopped abandoning yourself. Self-respect is not confidence. It's not swagger. It's not positive self-talk. Self-respect is the calm that comes from knowing you will do what you said you would do, especially when it's inconvenient. Most men go their entire lives without experiencing this. They chase motivation. They chase approval. They chase the feeling of being admired. But admiration doesn't hold you together at night. Applause means nothing when no one is watching. Validation collapses the moment circumstances turn against you. Self-respect remains, and it's built in a very specific way. It begins the moment you stop negotiating with your standards, not in one dramatic decision, but in hundreds of small, unglamorous moments where you choose alignment over relief. You get up when you said you would. You stop when you said you would stop. You walk away from what compromises you, even when it feels lonely. Each of these moments sends a signal inward. I can rely on myself. And that signal changes everything. Because the deepest form of anxiety isn't fear of failure. It's fear that you won't show up for yourself when it matters. When that fear dissolves, something steadier replaces it. You become less reactive, less defensive, less desperate to be understood. Not because you don't care, but because your sense of worth is no longer outsourced. This is why disciplined men move differently. They don't rush to explain. They don't over-justify their choices. They don't need to dominate conversations or prove intelligence. Their presence carries weight because it's backed by consistency. The Stoics understood this deeply. They believed character was revealed not by what a man claimed to value, but by what he practiced when comfort and virtue conflicted. To live in alignment with reason, to act according to principle rather than impulse, was the highest form of freedom. And freedom, in the Stoic sense, had nothing to do with pleasure. It meant being ungovernable from the inside. When you respect yourself, you're no longer at war with your impulses. You don't need to suppress them or indulge them. You observe, and then you choose. This is where peace enters, not the fragile peace that depends on everything going well, but a heavier, grounded peace that remains even when life is difficult. You stop needing constant stimulation. Silence becomes tolerable. Solitude becomes useful. You begin to enjoy restraint, not because it hurts, but because it reminds you that you're in control. And with control comes dignity. A subtle shift happens here. You stop asking, "How do I feel about this?" and start asking, "Is this aligned with who I'm becoming?" That question simplifies life. Many decisions no longer require debate. Your standards are clear. This doesn't make you rigid. It makes you precise. You still feel emotion. You still experience doubt. But those states no longer dictate your behavior. You act from principle, not mood. This is what it means to become someone you can respect. Not someone perfect, not someone admired, but someone coherent. A man whose thoughts, words, and actions point in the same direction. That coherence creates an inner silence nothing external can disturb. And here's what most people misunderstand. Self-respect is quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't seek validation. It doesn't demand recognition. The more self-respect you build, the less interested you become in being seen. You don't disappear. You simply stop performing. You stop proving your worth because you're no longer questioning it. This is where the transformation completes its circle. You didn't destroy the old you out of hatred. You destroyed him because he could no longer carry the weight of your values. You rebuilt not to impress the world, but to live without inner contradiction. The man you are now is quieter, more restrained, more deliberate. He doesn't rush toward pleasure. He doesn't run from discomfort. He knows every moment is an opportunity to either reinforce who he is becoming or resurrect who he left behind. And he chooses carefully. This isn't the end of growth. It's the beginning of self-command. From here on, progress doesn't feel dramatic. It feels stable. You may not feel euphoric, but you will feel solid. And in a world built on distraction, comparison, and noise, being solid is rare. You no longer need to ask who you are. Your actions answer that question quietly, daily, without compromise. This is what it means to become someone you can respect. And once you reach this point, there's no going back, because self-betrayal no longer feels survivable. You've tasted alignment, and nothing else satisfies anymore. What you walked through wasn't dramatic from the outside, and that's exactly why it matters. No crowds were watching. No applause marked the moments you chose restraint over impulse, discipline over comfort, truth over excuse. But inside, something fundamental shifted. You stopped asking life to make you feel better and started asking yourself to become better aligned. You stopped waiting for clarity before acting and learned that clarity is built after commitment. You stopped hoping the old you would disappear and took responsibility for ending him. That is the core of Stoic strength. Most people spend their lives trying to escape discomfort. They soften their standards. They negotiate with weakness. They confuse peace with numbness. You chose a different path. You accepted that growth would feel lonely before it felt liberating. That discipline would feel heavy before it felt natural. That becoming someone you respect would require letting go of versions of yourself that once felt safe. And here's the truth that only appears at the end of this road. The goal was never to become flawless. It was to become consistent. Consistent in how you think, consistent in how you act, consistent in how you respond when life applies pressure. That consistency creates something rare, inner stability. Not the kind that depends on outcomes, moods, or praise, but the kind that remains steady even when life is uncertain. From here forward, your life doesn't need to be loud to be meaningful. Your progress doesn't need to be visible to be real. Your strength doesn't need to be proven to anyone. You're no longer building yourself to be admired. You're building yourself to be reliable to yourself. And that changes how you move through the world. You choose more carefully. You speak less, but with weight. You tolerate less nonsense from others and from yourself. This isn't the end of the journey. It's the point where the journey stops feeling chaotic and starts feeling deliberate. So continue quietly, continue steadily, continue without nostalgia for who you were. The old you served his purpose, and the man you are becoming is no longer asking for permission to exist. He's already here.